Have you ever met someone who tried to force you to do something, and the more they pushed, the more you resisted? It's funny how human nature works that way. Pressure often creates the opposite effect. But kindness, warmth, and patience, they melt even the hardest heart. The fable, The Sun and the Wind, reminds us of this timeless truth, that gentleness can achieve what force never could. One morning, high above the clouds, the sun and the wind were talking. They were both powerful and both proud of their strength. The wind boasted, "I am the strongest. When I blow, trees bend, houses shake, and waves rise high in the ocean." The sun smiled calmly and said, "Power isn't only about force. Sometimes it's about warmth and light." The wind laughed. "You? Warmth? Light? Ha! Let's have a contest to see who's stronger." The sun agreed. "All right," he said. "Do you see that traveler walking down the road below? Let's see which of us can make him take off his coat." "Easy," said the wind. "Watch and learn." The wind took a deep breath and began to blow with all his might. He blew so hard that the trees bent sideways and dust filled the air. But instead of taking off his coat, the traveler held it tighter, wrapping it around himself to stay warm. The wind blew harder and harder, howling across the land. Yet the traveler only clutched his coat more firmly. Finally, the wind gave up, exhausted. He said, "I can't do it," angrily. Then it was the sun's turn. The sun smiled and began to shine gently. The air grew warm, and the traveler stopped shivering. Slowly, he loosened his coat. The sun shone a little brighter, and soon the traveler felt comfortable and cheerful. He wiped his brow, smiled, and took off his coat completely. The sun said softly to the wind, "You see, warmth and kindness can do what force cannot." And from that day, the wind never argued again. Now that we've heard the story, let's take a closer look at what it really teaches us and how we can apply it in daily life. To begin with, the moral of the story is gentleness is stronger than force. This simple message carries deep wisdom. Sometimes we think that being loud, firm, or aggressive will make people listen. But in reality, calm, confidence, and warmth often have greater power. Next, let's consider the phrase boast, meaning to talk proudly about one's achievements or power. The wind boasted about its strength, but that pride blinded it. In real life, we sometimes meet people who boast too much, and usually they end up proving the opposite of what they claim. The story also introduces the phrase watch and learn. It's a common English expression used when someone feels confident they're about to show you how something should be done. But as the wind discovered, confidence without wisdom can lead to failure. Another useful phrase is to hold something tighter. In English, we use it both literally, like holding a coat, and metaphorically. For instance, when someone pushes us to change, we often hold tighter to our own habits or opinions. That's exactly what the traveler did. The more he was pressured, the more he resisted. The sun's approach represents kind persuasion. This means influencing others through empathy and warmth instead of authority. You can apply this idea in daily life, in leadership, teaching, parenting, or even friendship. For example, instead of saying, "You must do this," you can say, "Let's try it this way. It might work better." That's the voice of the sun, not the wind. Additionally, the idiom "to melt someone's heart" fits perfectly here. The sun didn't fight. It simply melted the traveler's resistance with kindness. In relationships, this reminds us that a smile, a kind word, or a gentle tone can open doors that force will only close. And finally, the story encourages emotional intelligence, the ability to read the situation and respond with sensitivity rather than ego. In modern workplaces, friendships, or even online discussions, it's the sun-like people, calm, kind, and steady, who truly influence others. So, what can we take from the sun and the wind? Simply this: strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply shines. When you face conflict, remember, you don't always have to win by force. Try warmth, patience, and understanding instead. You might be surprised at how powerful they really are. If this story made you smile or think, please like, share, and subscribe for more beautiful English stories with real-life meaning. Because words, like sunlight, have the power to warm the coldest hearts.